What if you're out and about and you're wearing your poncho, and let's say you're a minimalist kind of guy like me, and you want to use this as your rain gear and you want to use it as your shelter, but it's pouring down rain. How do I set this thing up in the pouring rain and still stay dry? That is the key. Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason. It's another nasty, rainy, terrible day, and it's my favorite weather. I love this right here where it's warm enough to be outside without having a whole bunch of layers on. It's probably like 50 degrees, give or take. And it's just drizzly, nasty rain. I love it for some reason. I just really like being outside when it's like this. And rain gear is important. My preferred rain gear is generally always a poncho. I like Gore-Tex rain jackets as well. But eventually, if you're out in the rain long enough, they will soak through even the best Gore-Tex rain jackets. At least that's in my personal experience. So doubling up. So if you've got a rain jacket underneath a poncho, that's going to be the ticket if you really want to stay dry, with rain pants underneath that. That will help you stay dry. I like rubber boots. These are my Lacrosse Alpha Burley Pro boots. This is a brand new pair. I've been wearing this type of boot, exact same type of boot, for 5 years now, give or take, and absolutely love them. They're the best rubber boot that I've ever worn, and I've tried a lot of different kinds. This is why I love these rubber boots so much, is because I can just trudge through the creeks and streams and stuff around here. Most of the streams around here are fairly shallow, fast running, rocky, so I'm not wading through feet of water, generally speaking, in most areas. There are some bigger rivers and stuff, obviously, but most of the time when you got to cross a stream or something, it's not that deep. And these 18-inch high boots are generally big enough to do it. And in conjunction with my poncho, the poncho is just long enough. I'm 5'10". The poncho is just long enough for the drip edge of my poncho to run over top the outside of the boots and not drip down inside of my boots. If you're a taller guy, you might need to find a bigger poncho. What are you doing, girl? What are you doing? Huh? When most people wearing their Gore-Tex boots and are searching for a spot to hop across some rocks or a log across the stream or some easy way to cross, or they're having to take their boots off to get across, I just plow right through the water, and it doesn't matter at all. And even if the water does go up over the top of the boots, which happens every now and then, water goes over the top of the boots, they dry out really fast. You set them next to the fire, and the inside of the boots dries really fast. The Gore-Tex boots, in my experience, the waterproof Gore-Tex boots are only waterproof until the water spills over the top. And then once they're wet, man, they stay wet forever, especially in an environment like this where it's just damp and nasty and cold and the humidity is high. They're never going to dry out. It takes forever in my experience. Even with good wool socks, your feet are just going to freeze. And like I said, I love being out in the rain, but filming in the rain is sometimes a drag. Because if it starts to rain any harder than what it is right now, two things happen. The lens gets water all over it, which is a pain in the neck. And then even worse is the microphone gets wet. And then it muffles all the sound, and it sounds like there's one to try to talk to it. It's really irritating. So filming in the rain kind of sucks. But one of the reasons I like the poncho so much for a shelter, or for my rain gear, is because it can be used as a shelter. So it's a multi-purpose piece of kit, and I like that a lot. I can use it for all sorts of things, not just shelter and rain gear, but everything from a makeshift litter to rain catchment to all sorts of different things you can use a poncho for. And another one that's really important to me is that it breathes. It's flowy and loose, and if you start to sweat underneath it, some of that sweat doesn't just get trapped on you like it would in a rain jacket and it's really starting to rain. Like it would in a rain gear. Rain gear sometimes is stifling. Some of the really, really waterproof stuff, not the breathable Gore-Tex type stuff as much, but it's kind of stifling, and it just traps all your body heat, all your moisture from your body inside, and you end up sweating from the inside out, and you end up getting soaked anyway. So in the summertime, I really don't even wear a lot of rain gear, hardly ever actually, if it's really hot outside. But in the wintertime like this, it's December now, I definitely don't want to get soaking wet if you're planning on being out here for an extended period of time. If you get soaked right now and you have to spend the night out, it's going to be really bad, because it's going to be probably down in the 40s tonight, give or take, because of all this nasty weather. It's not going to get that super cold. There's going to be overcast, so it's going to stay a little bit warmer, but still, it's going to be cold enough to get hypothermic if you don't have if you're wet and not dressed appropriate. I've shown this in previous videos before, but I think it's a really good tactic if you like using a poncho as your shelter as well. It's a really good tactic because what happens is, what if you're out and about and you're wearing your poncho, and let's say you're a minimalist kind of guy like me, and you want to use this as your rain gear and you want to use it as your shelter, but it's pouring down rain. How do I set this thing up in the pouring rain and still stay dry? That is the key. Having some forethought and packing stakes is a really good idea. You can make them. It's not hard. It takes a couple minutes to make some stakes. But these metal ones that are sharp and thin and slippery, they work so much better to going in the ground, especially if it's a firm ground, if it's hard. So if it's really, really soft, any kind of stick will do. It doesn't really even matter. You don't even have to sharpen them. But having a stake like this, it will make your life much, much easier. And they're really light and they're easy to carry, so I just got them in my pocket right now, but I generally keep these in my pack. If you're planning on using your poncho as a shelter, I like to have a little bit of cordage, a little bit of bank line on each of the corners, and it makes it easier to stake them in the ground. You can use a bigger diameter stick for a stake because sticks generally don't slip through the eyelet of your poncho like a store-bought stake would. So I like to do that, and it just helps for setup. Now, to start the shelter that I'm going to make here, because it's just going to be a plow point type shelter, all I need is a stick. If I'm planning on attaching the corner of my poncho to just a small sapling like this one. You don't need much. It's not like you need a really strong branch or tree or anything to attach it to. All you need is a sapling like this one. But if you're going to do that, you need a little stick. And if you have already attached your little cordages to the corners of your poncho, all you got to do to start this shelter is take the cordage around the tree, go back through the middle of itself, and then take your stick that you picked up off of the ground, just any old stick as long as it's not rotten, and slip it through that loop right there, pull tight like that, and that right there is all you got to do to secure one corner of your poncho. That method that I just showed you works really well around a small little sapling, but if you want to try to go around a bigger tree like this one to my left, if that's where your shelter is going to end up being, you need a little bit of cordage. This is just a small little bit of cordage that I keep in my pockets, probably about 10 feet. Don't even need that. You don't need nearly that much. You only need about 2 feet, but I don't want to cut my cordage unless I have to. Run one end of my cordage through the eye of my grommet there, just like that. I'll go through the eye of the grommet, and then I'll go around the trunk of the tree about belly button high, give or take. Like so, around the tree. And then I'm just gonna tie my shoes. That's it. No special knot needed. Everybody knows how to tie their shoes. So that's all I'm gonna do. Shoes tied. So that's it. I've just tied my double bunny ears right there, just like I would normally tie my shoes around the tree. That secures the first corner of my poncho. The other 3 corners, I need the stakes. But I'm going to stay inside the poncho as I set this shelter up. I'm not getting out because it's pouring down rain, right? It's not crazy right now, but you get the idea. If it was bucketing down rain, you'd want to stay underneath this shelter, underneath the protection as much as possible so you don't get wet. Now I'll just unsnap my poncho. All right, I've got both sides unsnapped. And now I just need to stake out my corners. And I'm going to do that staying underneath the poncho the entire time. I'm going to stake out the furthest corner first. First things first, I'm going to stake out this farthest corner of my shelter right here. Staying underneath my poncho the entire time. Stake it. So I'm attempting to stay underneath my poncho the entire time. That's the whole point, so I don't have to get exposed to the rain and get my clothes wet. Even if you are dressed appropriately and wearing the Gore-Tex and all that stuff, it's best to stay as dry as you can, especially in colder wintertime temperatures. So I'm just staking out my other corner here. And now, as you can see, I'm in my shelter, but I've got this hole right here that I need to deal with. So what I will do is I will just draw up the drawstring like that. Close up that hole as best I can, like so. And then I'll give this thing a twist above the hole. So here's the hole right there. I'll twist it right above the hole like that, right there. And then I'll gooseneck it over. I'll take the top of the hood and I'll go over top like that. And then I'll take the cordage and go around it. And just like I handled my cordage that I had in my pocket, I'll wrap it around a couple times, and then I'll wrap over top of my thumb and stick the tag end through that wrap, pull it tight, and that closes up that hole. But now it's awful saggy, right? If you had some forethought, you would have grabbed a stick like this one. It's probably 2.5, 3 feet long, give or take. And this is gonna be a prop stick for my shelter. And I just need something to protect it. And that's another really good reason to always carry a neck gaiter such as this one. It's used for so many things. It's handy as a hanky right there. So what I'll do is I'll just take this and I'll stick it over the sharp end of my stick. I'll put it on the hood part, the thicker part, where it's got a little bit more cushion. So I'll stick it on there, a little bit more cushion for the pushing. And then I'll just prop my stick up like this, right there. And now that gives me a whole lot more headroom. And you're saying, well, the stick's in your way. If the stick was a little longer, it's actually fine right there. You kind of just prop it over to the side like that. That works good. Or I could even put it on this side. Let's see if that works better. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so I just put my stick over here on the back side. So now it's not really in my way. And now it's lifted my shelter up a little bit. And it gives me some ventilation under here. If it was hot, that'd be a really, really good thing. If it was cold, maybe not so much. But it kind of is what it is. With some tweaking, I could probably fix that. I could always stake down these middle grommets as well. But I think you guys get the gist. And now I am in my shelter, out of the elements, protected from the precipitation, whether that's rain or snow. And now obviously I'm laying on the cold, wet ground right now. That's a terrible idea. You should always carry something to lay on, especially in the wintertime. If you don't have something to lay on in these conditions, you're gonna get really, really cold. You're gonna just absorb the moisture off of the ground and it's going to suck. So having some sort of insulation barrier, even if you're just gathering pine boughs off the trees around here and shaking the rain off of them and laying that down, that's still better than laying on the wet, cold leaves and mud. So I would suggest that if you had nothing else. But having some sort of ground pad like a thermarest or something is a really, really smart idea. Even if it's just a trash bag, a plastic moisture barrier of some sort. Tyvek, anything like that if you really want to go the minimalist approach. But this is a really simple shelter, easy to set up, and you don't even have to expose yourself to the rain if you're using your poncho as rain gear and shelter. And I've slept under these in the rain plenty of times, just like this, in this same setup, and I really like it, actually. I mean, if it's raining super hard, you might get a little bit of splash coming in. But if you're dressed appropriately, again, not that big a deal. If you've got a bivy bag to crawl into, I really like the SOL breathable escape bivvies. Those are good. They do breathe pretty well, so you don't trap in a whole lot of moisture just from your own body. So I like those. And if the splash comes in and hits it, doesn't matter at all. You stay nice and dry. So a simple SOL bivvy combined with a poncho as your rain gear and shelter, I dig it. Very minimalistic, very simple, and it will keep you dry. And that's how I generally like to roll. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Can't wait to see you on the next video. Tell me what you think about this shelter. Tell me if you think it's practical, and tell me if it's something that you might utilize in the future. But here's the thing, if you do want to utilize this shelter, make sure you go out and practice it. Practice it when your life doesn't depend on it. That would be a good idea. Go out and practice it in the backyard and set it up and see if you can stay dry. So there's our shelter from the outside. Really nice little pop tent there. Keeping us sheltered from the elements. Sheds the rain really well. I'm Jason Salyer with Survival Dispatch. As a Survival Dispatch insider, you'll be able to gain the knowledge, the skills, and equipment necessary to protect your family when it really, really matters. They'll provide crucial information on such things as stockpiling food, medical necessities, communication plans. You will receive specific, actionable plans. You can deliver proven techniques to help you get home, shelter in place, or bug out safe.